Good morning and welcome to this historic podcast brought to you by Partners for Stennis and Michoud. I'm Tish Williams. Saturday, January the 16th, we are going to be making history right here in Hancock County, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and we're inviting you to be a part of it. Live coverage of the SLS Artemis Core Stage Hot Fire Test is expected to begin at 3:30 with the test to go off at 4. But as you know, with a test, anything can happen. So what we're being told is be ready around 2 o'clock on Saturday because we might start hearing the test go off either early, on time, or late. So just be ready. And all you have to do to be a part of this is to tune in to NASA TV at nasa.gov. And we certainly hope you will, because this is not a public event this time because of COVID. But what we are finding out is that people are making plans to go to the Hancock County Welcome Center at I-10 and also the Infinity Science Center parking lot. We even had some people today tell us that they're going to go out to Lazy Magnolia Brewing Company right there at the airport and watch this live. And also they'll be able to hear and feel, the shake, rattle, and roar of this historic moment for all of us. And with me today are some distinguished guests: the chairman of Partners for Stennis, Mark Glorioso, the United States Congressman Steven Palazzo, and also the former and past chairman of Partners for Stennis and general manager at Aerojet Rocketdyne, Michael McDaniel. So welcome and thank you for joining us today to provide some insight on why this hot fire test is so important to all of us. Now, Mark, you have actually worked at NASA for over 34 years, so you are intimately familiar with why this test is so important.
Thank you, Tish. Congressman, before I begin, I just want to thank you for coming to talk with us today. And I want to also thank you for your leadership in these times as you, in the coming weeks, tie our country back together, unify us, and bring us together. Thank you again for your service. But today, let's talk about something that is very pleasant. Tomorrow, NASA is going to test the core stage of that new space launch system. It's going to send an unoccupied test vehicle to the moon and back in late 2021. This is in preparation to put the first woman and the next man on the moon in 2024. The rocket carries 4 refurbished, refurbished space shuttle main engines. The thrust is about 1.6 million pounds, and it's going to burn approximately 700,000 gallons of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. The test will execute the rocket through its full profile for the ascent stage of that mission. So, Congressman, we at NASA understand the importance and the relevance of this amazing accomplishment, not only tomorrow, but in 2024. In your own words, can you talk a little bit about the importance of human space travel and why it is so relevant to us today?
Absolutely, Mark, and thank y'all for having me on. Space travel is no longer just something that we're sitting about or reading in comic books, but it's actually a reality. It's the new reality, and it's going to get faster and it's going to get cheaper, and more people are going to be able to participate in space travel in the future. So it's not only there that's going to be able to provide a market to basically find rare, I guess we used to call them rare earth minerals. I guess we're going to call them hopefully very popular space minerals. Just basically we're going to open up new industries in space, tourism, mining, but also America, has always been a leader in space, and we need to maintain our leadership, our exceptionalism. We've got great partners across the world that help us research and develop and get to where we are today. But we without us, we wouldn't be where we are today. But we also need our partners as well. And finally, one of the big things, being South Mississippi is such a military community, is that we understand that space is that next domain, and it's also the highest domain. And whoever basically, I wouldn't say control, but can keep the peace in that domain. That means there's, it's extremely important to America and our, basically Earth's best interest that we keep peace in space and stick together. But that, if we're not up there, and our adversaries are, that could be very dangerous in the long run. So, it's going to create jobs. You're going to have an opportunity in the near future to be able to maybe spend the weekend at the MGM International Space Station. I don't know who's marketed it. It might be called the Palazzo. I think there's a property out in Las Vegas. Someone's going to put their sticker on there, and they're going to have to pay for it. But they're going to be people traveling to space.
Thank you. Those comments are certainly well placed, and I appreciate hearing them from a lawmaker and appropriator such as yourself. We sometimes hear criticism regarding those appropriations, excuse me, how we spend $20 billion a year at NASA. But when you look at that total federal budget, it's really only a half a penny of every dollar spent. So we do many things besides just human space flight. And I just wonder, how do you respond when people question your support of such a great endeavor?
Yeah, it's people usually don't look at what we're actually funding. They look at the bad and they try to, make that as what you supported. But when you start telling people that we're supporting our men and women in uniform, we're supporting our veterans, our law enforcement officers, it's important to the infrastructure of not just our state, our nation. And then you sprinkle in things like NASA, which people, it is a very small part of our budget. And you start talking about all the great technologies and spinoffs from America's space program. I mean, these are life-saving technologies. These things are, what was it when someone told me once that, there's more technology in our cell phone than there was on the Apollo spacecraft that went all the way to into space and to the moon. So it shows you the America's space program is probably the reason why we have the quality of life that we have today. And I say we should fund our space program even more. In the past, obviously, lawmakers, we don't always know how to do budgets, but there's strong bipartisan support for NASA's programs and what it does. But, we probably had some historic funding over the past 2 or 3 years. It's been a long time. And, so we could do better as lawmakers, making sure the budget and the resources reflects the mission. Instead of just giving stable budgeting, always not enough, but just, same flatline budgeting year after year, it's not going to really allow us to achieve the great things that we want to do in space. And in 2024, not only is going to be a historic when we test all 4 of these engines, but in 2024, when we hopefully, fingers crossed, put the first woman and the next man on the moon, it's going to be a outstanding time for America and the world.
Yeah, I want to use your words because in this capacity that I'm in now, I get the opportunity to carry this message, and your words are very well placed, and I appreciate that. And again, for us at NASA, we understand and appreciate the emotional and even the romantic side of this space travel. I'd like to know, though, in your own words, how it feels to be testing this rocket and getting ready for these first steps towards interstellar travel.
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't even know if I have the words to describe it. When I first got elected to Congress, I was fortunate to get on the Science and Space Committee, and I was appointed chairman of the Space Subcommittee as a freshman, which is pretty rare. But it was a huge honor for me because I knew how important Stennis is to the space program, but also how important the space program is to America. And in 2011, as you know, that was the end of the shuttle era. And I still regret there was 3 shuttle missions, the final 3 shuttle missions. I skipped the first one because I got some bad advice from somebody. I won't say that. When someone says, "Hey, there's going to be 2 more, don't worry about it." And so I missed the first one. I was actually at the second one, and they had that it's the weather. Everything's got to be perfect when you're launching into space. And Mark and Mike, that more than anybody. And the mission was scrubbed. And then they did it like a week later, but I wasn't on the Space Coast to be able to participate. And then the third and final mission, we were actually voting in Washington, D.C. And so I can tell you, I miss those historic last launches, but I'm not going to miss the rocket test fire, and I'm not going to miss whatever we do in the future, whether it's 2024 and all the great things we're going to do in between. This is just huge. To be here, to be on this day. A lot of people said it wasn't going to be done. A lot of people, there was talk about even skipping the green run and just moving on. But we need to test the equipment before we fly it. And I've had astronauts in front of me in my committee, and they told me, so it's like, sir, we've every rocket that we've tested has taken us to space and brought us back. So testing is extremely important, and that's why Stennis and the people at Stennis. We got beautiful test stands, but those test stands aren't anything without our greatest asset, and that's the people that go through those gates every day to help preserve America's basically legacy of space leadership.
Yeah, I
Well
appreciate that. Very well said. Congressman, I really want to thank you for your time today. We're very excited that you could take the time to come down here. And I hope that tomorrow's test proves as emotionally moving for you as I know it will for all of the men and women who have tirelessly worked to make this test successful. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. I made sure I was vaccinated. I would, in case that was a requirement to come to this test. And I'm just glad it's on the weekend, so I'm not going to have to skip votes to be there in person. And so, listen, thank you, Tish, Mark, and Mike. Thank y'all for what you do. And it's going to be a great day.
Let's go to the moon.
To the moon and then Mars.
Amen.
And beyond.
And beyond.
All right. Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.
So next up, we have Michael McDaniel with Aerojet Rocketdyne. Mark?
Michael, I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate your time here with your 37 years of experience in this field and having been at Stennis for 20 years, having been just 10 years ago when you were promoted to general manager for Aerojet Rocketdyne. You and your team have been a critical part of this historic moment in space. And thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you, Mark, and absolutely it's a pleasure to be here and talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. You're absolutely right. It's a very historical time, but it's also a very exciting time. And when you look at what's going on and what it means to the United States and to Mississippi and to the Gulf Coast and the region and the people that have worked, like you said, so hard to get to this point, and especially on the very trying pandemic times over this past year, it just adds more distraction. And to really look at the quality of work and the attention to detail and being able to perform that work safely, it is amazing. And but it's the team and the people here. So as you know, the space launch system core stage tomorrow is going to have 4 RS-25 engines being tested at the same time. That has never been done in the world. The amount of thrust coming out has already been said, 1.6 million pounds of thrust at sea level. That amount of propulsion and liquid power propulsion has never happened since the Apollo days, since the 70s. And so, these engines, as you said, were repurposed from the SSME program, the Space Shuttle Main Engine Program, and the shuttle program. So some people ask why repurposing them, and absolutely they are repurposed. But what that repurpose means is that they have been improved and they have been upgraded. With the type of materials being used, the type of manufacturing processes that are involved with additive manufacturing and 3D printing, it some call it. So we actually added more thrust to each of these engines. And, really, when I look at people saying, okay, it's been repurposed, and absolutely it has, and it is, but that's a very smart move. If you really look at the reliability of these engines, they have supported 135 shuttle missions with zero escapes or zero issues, loss of missions or anything because of the engines. So they are very reliable. And the United States and the astronauts that are riding on these rocket vehicles deserve the best. And these engines have proven to be the best for putting humans into outer space. They're very reliable. So it just makes sense. And so it is very powerful tomorrow that we test these engines, 4 engines at one time. Of course, on the shuttle program, there was only 3 of these engines. So we have 4 engines now that's going to be tested tomorrow at one time. And it is going to be an amazing time. We've heard that 1.6 million pounds of thrust is going to produce acoustics that can be heard essentially 60 miles away from Stennis, 60 miles. And so people may hear that. It depends on the cloud cover and the weather conditions, but it could be as far as 60 miles. And that is absolutely amazing for me to know that an hour's drive essentially away. So as you know, and we had these engines that we repurposed from the shuttle program, tested them when we needed to, flight certified testing them at Stennis. The employees at Stennis actually test these engines for the shuttle program and flight certified tested them. And then we actually delivered these 4 engines to Michoud assembly facility just across into Louisiana, right outside of New Orleans. And the team there installed these engines on the core stage and then shipped by barge from Michoud back to Stennis, the core stage with the 4 engines on the bottom of it. That core stage has been installed into the B2 test stand at Stennis, and the congressman was right on point. It's a beautiful test stand. It's been modified to handle this largest rocket vehicle ever built, the strongest, most powerful. And that test stand had to be modified to handle the height and the size of these core stages. And so now we've been running through several incrementally more system inclusion test called the green run test. But tomorrow, the hot fire test of that green run test series is going to occur. And it's going to be approximately 8 minutes. And it's going to produce data that's going to be analyzed by engineers over the 8 minutes. And that's going to take some time, but the sequence of what's going on for this is that at the end of the 8 minutes, there's going to be somewhere between 50 and 75 terabytes of data. And it really put that in perspective. The entire Library of Congress can fit on 15 terabytes. And we're talking about 50 to 75 terabytes of data being generated over this test tomorrow. And so it's going to take some time for the engineers to review that data, analyze that data, make sure that it's every system on that component is performed properly. At the end of that, when it has, then the core stage will then be removed from a test stand, put back on a barge, delivered down to Kennedy Space Center, where it will be integrated with the solid rocket boosters and then the Orion capsule. And then that core stage which is the first stage with the solid rocket boosters and the Orion capsule will be taken out to the launch pad and launched to the moon. And it'll be uncrewed, but it will be testing the entire systems integrations of that core stage and then safely return the Orion capsule return to Earth. So that's it's exciting if you think about it. I mean, we talk about the first woman and next man on the moon. We're going to have a presence on the moon. The congressman and others have stated, that we'll have humans on Mars next, and that is just amazing. And our younger generation, the next explorers, or that family of astronauts that's going to be part of that Mars program. I wish it was me, but it's definitely going to be exciting for them, and I can't express how historical it will be tomorrow.
Thank you, Michael. On the behalf of all of the members of Partners for Stennis and Michoud, we wish to extend a message of pride and gratitude to the local community at Stennis Space Center under the direction of Dr. Rick Gilbrick, and at the Michoud Assembly Facility under the direction of Robert Champion, in moving America forward with spacecraft and rockets required, as you said, Michael, to put that first woman on the moon and the next man on the moon as part of NASA's Artemis program. We congratulate the SLS and Orion teams across the country and wish them success to complete the Green Run test tomorrow. We hold in high esteem the women and men in South Mississippi and Louisiana who have dedicated their lives to this program. We urge every citizen to reach out and congratulate our family and friends who have made this momentous event so spectacular, not only for our nation's future, but for the future of humankind, as they work tirelessly through the adversities of the COVID-19 pandemic to make this new NASA rocket a reality. Tish?
I want to thank you, Mark, and also Michael. Michael has been the past chairman of Partners for Stennis, and Partners for Stennis and Michoud. We have been advocating for Stennis Space Center and the Michoud Assembly Facility to members of Congress for 25 years. So this is a historic moment for all of us. And I cannot thank you enough for your leadership, for getting us to this point. And I also want to point out to everyone, Saturday, January the 16th, we are told that the briefings will begin at 3:30 on NASA TV at nasa.gov. But we've also been told that with a test, anything can happen. So we need to start being prepared, start listening around 2 o'clock on Saturday. And the test might come early, it might come later, but the set time is 3:30 briefings, the 4 o'clock test. And we've heard everything from people going to the Mississippi Welcome Center to listen and hear the rattle and roar of the engines. We have people going out to the Infinity Science Center parking lot. We even have people saying that they're going to go to Lazy Magnolia Brewing Company. What a great spot to watch it at the Stennis International Airport. But the bottom line here is the people of Mississippi and Louisiana are making history, and it's all happening on Saturday, January the 16th, possibly around 4 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So please join us and be a part of making history. And congratulations to everyone.